Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Catalyst webinar series presented by the Education Committee for the Southern California PGA. The Catalyst webinar series is a bi-weekly educational platform for creating success and change in your club and career. We're very excited to have secured and locked down our National Secretary, Executive Committee member, Nathan Charnes. He's the Secretary for the PGA of America. Nathan is the Director of Golf and General Manager at Wing Haven Golf Club outside of St. Louis. And he has been gracious enough to carve out some time to join us this morning on the Catalyst. Good morning, Nathan. Thanks for joining us today.
Hey, good morning, John, and thanks for having me on today. And good morning to everybody else tuning in from Southern California.
Yes, indeed. We've got 45 and counting PGA members on this morning's Catalyst. And when Nathan and I were talking about the format for this morning's webcast, rather than have it be kind of a politically platformed discussion about, all the hot topics in our industry right now, such as deferred comp and retention and recruitment, I thought it would be, we thought it would be better to depart from that and do more of a personal interview on Nathan Charnes, the golf professional, the man, how he got into the golf business, what his motivations were, what his challenges have been, and what has been the cornerstones of his journey thus far in his golf career. So without any further delay on that, first question, Nathan, where are you from? How did you get introduced to golf? And let's start from there.
Yeah, sounds good. Thanks, John. And of course, I'm happy to touch on those other PGA, related topics as well that you brought up. But yes, it's good to be with everybody this morning. If I haven't met you in person or through one of these, my name is Nathan Charnes. I grew up in Evansville, Indiana, which is a very southern tip of Indiana. It's almost in Kentucky. And how I got into the golf business or golf in general was through my father, who was also a PGA member. So growing up as a kid, golf was a part of my entire family. So at one time, my dad was a head golf professional at Evansville, Indiana. I had an uncle who was a superintendent in Louisville, Kentucky at Harmony Landing. And I had another uncle that was a GM at Moss Creek Plantation at Hilton Head Island. So as you can imagine, golf was a part of the entire Charnes family. Every vacation, everything that we ever did, obviously there was a golf component. Growing up, I played a lot of golf and baseball, and I focused in on golf in high school. I played college golf at a small Division I school, University of Evansville. And when I got out of college, I didn't know if I really wanted to be in the golf business. I'd grown up around it. I'd worked in it. I'd been around my dad the whole time, around the club, helping out for events and working, doing everything that we all did, carts and range and cleaning clubs, stuff like that. But I really wasn't sure I wanted to get into business. So I took a job in the banking industry and insurance industry after I graduated from college. And I mean, it only took me maybe 6 to 8 weeks to realize just how unhappy and frankly miserable I was. I dreaded getting up every day and going to do that job, and I missed the people and I missed golf. So quickly went back to my dad and said, hey, I'm going to make a change here. Can I just work in the golf shop until I figure this out? And so I did. I started working in his golf shop while I tried to find a job, because also at the same time, there wasn't much opportunity in Evansville, Indiana. There's not a lot of clubs down there. Evansville Country Club is a nice club. They just hired a new head pro. Long story short, I needed to look at moving away just for more opportunity for me. So it landed me a job as an assistant in Kentucky, where I spent 1 year at Novodell in Hopkinsville. It wasn't an ideal situation for me or my new wife at the time. We were still looking for a bigger city, and that's what brought us to St. Louis. So landed a job in St. Louis back in May of 2004. And it's hard to believe that it's the club I'm at today. So I'm starting my 20th season at Wing Haven Country Club. I started as an assistant, went to head golf professional, director of golf, now general manager. And again, been here for almost 20 years, starting the 20th season. And it's been just a great club for me, for everything else that's gone on in my world. So that's the short version. But yeah, without my father being a PGA member, without me being around it, without me playing golf as a kid and getting introduced to everything through him, obviously I wouldn't be in this industry. And it's it's been it was a great way to get into the business, and it's still something that we share. You know, my dad comes over from Indiana. He's retired now, but he comes over and helps at my member guests and members and hangs out in the golf shop and helps me run the events over here. So it's pretty cool friendship that we have through golf, and it's turned into a lifelong career and passion for me.
Can you talk a little bit about the dynamic of your journey in governance, particularly after you got to Winghaven? And was that an influence that came from your father? Was he involved in governance as well?
You know, actually, so he wasn't. Well, he wasn't in the Indiana section, and it was mostly because of the distance. In the Indiana section, Indiana's about 9 hours northern tip to southern tip, and the section office and a lot of the people that are involved, at least most of them, are in the Indianapolis area, which is about 4 hours north of where his facility was. So it was hard for him to play in events or be involved just because of the drive time. So he was never, now there was kind of a unofficial chapter in Southern Indiana that he was involved with and did some things with some of the local pros, but he never really had the opportunity to get involved in governance in his career. When I moved to St. Louis, what happened for me was I didn't know anybody. I moved here with my wife. We knew 0 people in the entire town. And I started playing in golf tournaments and wanted to get involved. And my boss at the time called the section president and said, "Hey, can you put Nathan on a committee?" And he did. And I started just going to events, meeting people. And I quickly learned that I thought it was awesome. You know, I loved getting together with fellow golf professionals and talking about whatever the topic was and trying to create programs and help out our fellow members. And it just exploded from there. So I immediately started I got thrown on the education committee first, and I started throwing out ideas for different things that the board loved. And then later I was asked to be the education chairman. And then later down the road, you know, just kept getting involved, kept doing more. It became just something I loved to do in addition to the real job. And, you know, later was encouraged to run for section office, which I did and was elected and did my 8 years there. And as soon as I came out of being a section officer, a year later, it was time for our section to elect a district director. Again, had some interest in that and had some encouragement from other people. So ran for that, was elected. And as soon as I came off of being district director, you know, it was time and for the national campaign last year, 2022, had some encouragement, had some support. The Gateway section has never had a national officer. In fact, in our 50 years of history, we've only had one person ever run. Jerry Ray was his name. He ran in 94 and 96. Other than that, he's been the only person ever to even run for section or for national office. So as you can imagine, when I had the support and started looking into it, I had the interest and started looking into it, the support from the section and the community and my club was just, it was crazy. It was so much because everybody got behind it. And so it went through that process. So I had this pretty amazing climb but it was also set up perfectly from moving to St. Louis, getting involved, meeting people, working on committees, going into section office, going into district director, and then the national, you know, campaign last year. The timing was perfect. How I kind of got lucky on the timing, and it all worked out. And here I am. You know, still not quite. You know, I still have days where I'm not. You know, I can't believe that it worked out the way it did last year and was elected in November. But just extremely honored and proud. And you know, it's even to this day though. I love everything I'm doing with the PGA of America, but I still love doing locally for my section, getting involved with some of the committees and the programs that they do here. Because that's where my roots are. That's where it started. And to me, that's, you know, I wouldn't have one without the other.
So as we all know, national governance historically has a strong East Coast footprint. What was for lack of a better term, what was the catalyst that allowed you in the gateway section to position itself differently this time around to get you that national election?
You know, I think there's a few things. I'm not for sure about the East Coast, you know, South or whatever, you know, the conversations, probably the topics that we've all heard. I will say though, I think it did help that I was kind of right in the middle of the country. You know, and I was kind of distanced from that East Coast, the South, and some of those conversations that happen. I think what was the best for me, or what really ended up working out well for me, is I knew going into the election after the candidates were finalized that I was known the least of the three candidates. So I knew I had to outwork them, and I committed early on to work harder, work longer, and be more prepared at everything, all the debates, all the Q&As, the super regionals, the presentations, the everything. And I had a very firm plan of a communication plan of what we were going to do each month, reaching out to individual, section leaders, or maybe just sending out emails or notes or videos. And I think at the end of the day, I was also what was the most impactful. The biggest reason is I was the most, I would say, relatable to our average member, which ended up, and I think that's why it turned out the way it did. And I ended up using that in my speech, because I do think that my journey, my job, my path is like 90% of our members. I'm at a mid-sized country club that's been through ownership changes. It's had struggles. I fight recruitment and retention every day. I'm out helping do everything around the club. Like, I am a very true green grass golf professional at a mid-level facility, and nothing against people that have, different types of jobs or different types of facilities, but I think that related to people. I think that people last year, delegates, they said, wow, Nathan really knows what it's like, and he sees the successes and challenges that we're facing every day, because he's facing them as well. And I think that put a lot of stock in me from them, at least from the feedback that I got, because I'm one of the majority of our members and what's going through. And what a lot of people don't know is, for the first 6 months of my campaign, I was going through an ownership change again, my third in 20 years here. So I was dealing with new bosses, new ownership change in addition to the campaign. And once you start talking about what you're going through, people are like, again, it's just another connection point, because they know that you're, I'm one of you guys, and can relate to what you're going through, because it is a hard industry to be in right now.
Certainly. Well, when I met you at the annual meeting, Robin Shelton introduced us, and of course I hadn't been abreast on the backstory on your campaign trail. Basically know you from your nomination speech there at the annual meeting, and I will say it was one of the most compelling nomination speeches I've ever seen. It was very motivating, and kudos to you for that. That there's no way that was easy in that forum. And I can't remember if the two other candidates had already taken their names out of the running prior to that speech, or if that speech kind of finalized it for everybody. I don't really remember the timeline of it all, but I do recall Robin, when he introduced us, he talked about your involvement with PGA Reach and Bellerive, and the bringing of the PGA Championship to Bellerive. Can you enlighten us on that story?
Yeah, absolutely, and it's definitely, we're proud of that in the Gateway section. So back, and there's an extremely longer version of this story, but the short version, back in 2009, we started our Gateway PGA Foundation, and we were trying to bring competitive golf to St. Louis with a partnership with Bellerive Country Club, and Bellerive had a GM at the time named Jeffrey Kriefel, who's now at Congressional. He worked hand in hand with our board and with Josh Riley, our executive director at the time, and created, basically the idea is how can we leave a lasting impact on a community by leveraging a championship? So that's when we created what we called PGA Reach. When we created Reach, it was an acronym for Recreation, Education, Awareness, Community, and Health. And the thought is that we could do programs around a championship and leverage that championship to leave that lasting impact on a community. And it was part of the pitch that Bellerive made to the PGA to get a PGA championship. And they ended up offering them a senior PGA, and they countered. And long story short, they got both. They got the senior PGA, I think it was 13, and then the PGA championship in 18. But part of that, the sales pitch to the people that make that decision was what we created, which was PGA Reach. So it's pretty cool. And then, I think that was probably 2011 now. And it was a couple years later that Josh Riley, our ED, started getting some calls from some people at headquarters asking questions about Reach. And it wasn't too soon after that the national PGA asked us if they could adopt Reach as their foundation outreach program. Now, what we all know is PGA Reach now is different, and that's okay. It's no longer an acronym like we originally created it, but now it's got, now the 4 pillars nationally of hope, diversity, inclusion, junior league golf, and place to play, which is really, again, really great things. So it's morphed into the new national PGA Reach, but definitely anytime anybody from the Gateway section hears PGA Reach, it's definitely a feather to our cap because, it kind of was started here in the Gateway section. And what's really cool, and people are going to start hearing about it now more now, is locally our PGA Reach Gateway continues to try and be ahead of the curve and do pretty cool things in terms of community outreach. We're trying to do our own capital campaign for a golf park downtown for underprivileged kids. Our PGA Reach Gateway just created something called PGA Able, which is basically a spinoff of PGA Hope, but for people with learning developmental disabilities, which is pretty cool. So they're doing some really cool things here in the Gateway with connected to our PGA Reach Gateway. But like I said, there's a much longer story to that, but it was pretty cool to be at the table years ago when we created Reach, and then we're able to get on early. And of course, our president and chairperson for PGA Reach Gateway is Ozzie Smith. As you can imagine, to have a Hall of Fame baseball player as the spokesperson for your foundation does nothing but open doors in our community of St. Louis and even all over the country as we try to do things with our PGA Reach Gateway. But it's a pretty cool story. Yeah, thanks for asking.
No, for sure. I had heard that before, and there's no doubt. I mean, that whole effort and that whole initiative probably personally helped catapult you to a position of networking with other PGA professionals outside the section, kind of leading to this national platform that you find yourself on now. We talk about diversity in the industry, diversity in the PGA, just demographic diversity. We talk about the executive committee now is very balanced in terms of where the 3 officers are from. Obviously, John Lindert, president, is from Michigan. You're from the Gateway section, and Don Ray's from the Southwest. To kind of tap into that, moving through the chairs over the next 4 years, where do you see the demographic diversity coming from going forward with the PGA?
Well, in terms of the leadership or governance, it's kind of, I think, probably a 2-part answer. On the officer side, it's hard to say because so much of it is dictated by the election process and who's nominated, who's runs, what support they get, and how that works out. Which, I don't think anybody ever quite knows what they're getting into or how that's going to pan out as you go through that process. But from the board standpoint, it's interesting that question comes up a lot. We do have a member at large on the board now, which was kind of started with that idea to try to offer a board position to somebody. It could be a diversity and inclusion sheet, or maybe it's somebody that maybe for their reasons they don't have an opportunity to run to be a district director. But it could definitely lend towards that D&I position on the board. But we struggle too, if you're looking at truly trying to make that board more diverse in background or where you're coming from, it's hard because of how the process works for each district director, because the PGA nationally doesn't really have, each section does it differently in terms of, not each section, but some sections do a board appointment for district directors, some do a section membership election, how it feeds into who actually gets the seat to be district director and serve on the board for the 3 years. So because of how the governance system is set up, we really don't have much control over the makeup of that room other than that member at large position. It's all elected by peers, whether it's locally or on the national stage and the secretary election like I just went through. But there's no doubt it's great to have diverse, I always say it's great to have, regardless of where you're from, just diversity of thought. Diversity of thought sometimes goes, very far in that boardroom because there's so many topics, there's so many important things going on. And, whether I manage, no matter what facility I work at or you do, or what our background is, or whether it's teaching or coaching or playing or high end, low end, mid tier, whatever it is, just have diversity of thought in that room to talk about the topics will only make us stronger. It only makes us hash out things better and talk about it more educatedly and make better decisions if we have that, rather than having 20 people in that room that are all coming from the same type of club and type of business as everybody else.
With our national headquarters moving from Florida to Frisco, Texas, I mean, I would think there's no doubt that that lends to uh, that movement towards a little more balanced representation and just an easier way for everyone to connect to one another. Can you talk about how that's been for you in the secretary position with the new headquarters in Frisco?
Yeah, it's been good, and yes, I think it will be. So if you're not aware, there's a sale lease back. We had two buildings in Florida. One was owned, one was leased. We didn't renew the lease on the one with Frisco happening. We did a 3-year sale and lease back at the other one. I think they signed it last November. So there's this 2-year left transition of getting everybody over to Frisco or hiring in Frisco, unless you work in the field through the regional model, like your career consultants and player engagement people, stuff like that. So that's going on. And I think it's going to be another 18 months before kind of Florida headquarters, not PGA Golf Club, but the headquarters kind of shuts down. But yeah, it's been a great transition for me. And I know it's been a great transition for the people in the Dallas community. They're hiring, they've got programs there for people. They're doing, job fairs and different things, and reaching out and getting connected in the community to try to get their workforce set up there, and doing some of the same initiatives in terms of that balanced workforce as we just talked about. And for me personally, getting acclimated to it, it's pretty. The nice thing about Dallas is it's pretty much one flight from anywhere in the country to get to it. So far this year, a lot of the meetings and functions, I've only been there a couple times. But I've got a couple more times. I think I'll go there 4 or 5 times this year to the new headquarters or the new home down there. But it's good. I mean, if you haven't seen it, well, anybody in section leadership is going to get to see it in November if they haven't, for the annual meeting that will be at the resort. It's going to be the resort is amazing. It's really nice. People are really going to enjoy that. The district, the putting green, that whole experience out there is going to be special. We're hoping to secure it, or there's talks of securing that location for the annual meeting every other year. We're working with Omni right that it would make sense to go back there every other year, and then of course have the annual meeting in the odd years it's tradition to let the outgoing president host that. So this year would be Frisco, and then next year would be in Michigan as John Lundert goes out, and then back to Frisco, and then out Arizona or wherever Don Ray's going out, and so on and so forth. But the transition's been good. And again, the facilities, everything, it's top notch. It's great. The headquarter building is amazing. I can't imagine why anybody wouldn't want to work there. It's one of the coolest buildings I've ever seen.
How often are you communicating with John Lundert and Don Ray? Is there just a constant text feed that just goes 24/7 between the three of you?
Daily. Yeah, it is daily. And they joked about that going in, but we talk every day, whether it's through text. We have a text group with just 3 of us. We've got another text group with the 3 of us and Seth. I've got a text group with myself and all the board members. And I have them saved at the top of my phone in the groups, and it's every day, especially with the last month. I think that touching a little bit on those topics, it was the first 5 months this year, the conversations, everything was recruitment, retention, deferred comp, associate numbers, education 3.1. All those basic core PGA topics that we're all talking about. That's what I talked about. I went to 6 spring meetings. That was a conversation there every day. Obviously, a lot changed in the golf dynamic in early June when the announcement was made from the PGA Tour and that. And so the text chains have picked up a lot on conversations and questions. We're getting so many questions about what this means, to different parts of our association. Really good questions, and a lot of them, the answers we don't have right now. But so I would say that the last month it's picked up a lot. We've had more board calls in the last month, text, and a lot of it too, John, we're sharing articles, we're reading, we're finding articles from all these there's so many media outlets now, and we get articles that have different spins, different questions, different answers, and we're sharing it with each other, and just to be as educated as we can to handle the questions that we're getting, which is it's been an interesting last 30 days for sure, and I don't think it's going to calm down while this whole thing plays out.
Keeping up with Don Ray's LinkedIn posts, being on a live text chain with him on a daily basis is probably a full-time job in and of itself.
It is. It is, it is. And I would say he's the same person on the text chain that he is on his posts and in person. And it's awesome. I think that I believe that the three of us are a good balance. John Linder, he knows so much. There's so much knowledge. He has such a governance background. He knows in terms of history and board of control and different things, like there's so much in his mind that he knows and precedent and what's been done in the past. And Don has so much passion, and Don has so much excitement, and Don, anybody will run through a wall for Don, and it's great. And then my personality, my process, the way I'm a very much a process guy and ask questions and think about stuff. And I just think that there's a good balance between the three of us to where, we go into meetings and talk about stuff. We talked about it yesterday. We always feel good after we have a call. Even if we disagree with each other, which we do all the time, we feel good after the call because we know we've talked about something. We've got three different perspectives, and we can move forward with some sort of a plan, or at least a course to get more information or answer a question. But
so through every president's term, there's always really one hot topic or hot issue that needs to be handled or managed or acted and reacted to. You're not too far off from your presidency. What do you anticipate your Cornerstone mantra to be for your presidency 3 years from now?
Yeah, John, that's an interesting question, and I don't even know how to answer that at this point, because so much change. I mean, our world is changing so quick. You look even since the pandemic. I think that everybody that was in a seat similar to mine when the pandemic hit, they probably put everything on the back burner and just tried to focus on the basics of making golf accessible and safe. And we did a great job with that. And I think a lot of initiatives or programs or ideas kind of got put on hold because the focus changed. The same thing happened, recently. There's some stuff going on in the golf dynamic. A lot of people think that what's going on with the tour doesn't affect us, but it does. It does affect us because the PGA of America is partners with our friends across the pond in the Ryder Cup. And if this new company goes through, it's going to be a part of that. So this totally affects us, and we have to be ready for that day and be able to represent our association as best we can. But going back to the question, when you think about how quick the world is changing, whether it's a pandemic or the competitive golf climate right now, or recruitment issues, retention issues, or whatever that is, there's going to be stuff going on in the next few years that none of us foresaw, that we adjust. And that kind of ties into one of your first questions, that one of the things that I ran on was I had no agenda. And when I first said that, people stepped back. They're like, well, what do you mean you have no idea? I said, doesn't mean I don't have any ideas. It doesn't mean I don't have the things I'm passionate about, but I don't have an agenda because I think my agenda should be you, the member. And if there is something that's pressing today that requires my attention, that's going to make the most impact on the association, that's my agenda for today. And if that changes in 30 days, I'm going to change my agenda based upon what the membership needs. So, I guess I would like an opportunity to answer that question closer to that time. Because I think it's going to be so different. Right now, I think my most important thing right now is just trying to equip our golf professionals with tools to be successful. The golf industry is hard right now, but we've never been busier. We've never been more short-staffed. Most clubs, there's not a slow day on the tee sheet anymore. We've never been asked to do more with less at most of our facilities right now. We're just busy every day. And every day, we get asked to do more. And that's okay. If golf professionals can do that, but you're getting compensated better than you ever have, or you're getting time off, or you get to spend time with your family, and we check all those boxes, that's great. But I would love to, if I had to answer today, I'd love to look back and say, we together made the lives of our fellow members better, whether it's through compensation, time off, time with family, balance, whatever that looks like for you. Because this industry is fun. This business is fun. But if you could do that and also check all those other boxes of family and and time off or whatever's important to you, I think we would all win. But a large part of that too is also educating our customers, our members on that, and that it's okay to not always be here. It's okay to not always feel like you have to be at every event, because you have a highly qualified team that can handle that in your absence. And at the end of the day, every, members take days off from their job, so we should take days off from our job. And it's okay to be selfish too, till we have a nice life.
Fantastic. What are you most excited about over the next year?
Next year? Oh man. I don't know how you can't be excited about the Ryder Cup. I've been to four Ryder Cups. One as a board member, the first time I was on the board. And if you've never been to a Ryder Cup in person, it doesn't do it justice to see it on TV. Whether you're a PGA member or just a golf fan or a spectator, being at a Ryder Cup in person around the first tee is unlike anything that you will ever experience. And I think that, so I can't not be excited anytime, not just this year, but for any Ryder Cup year. To have the Ryder Cup in Rome is going to be extremely special. So that's at the top of the list for sure. I'm excited for our annual meeting in Frisco. I can't wait to see the look on some of the people's faces when they see the new home, the building, that main level, the top, and when they go to the district, the putting green and the Jumbotron out there, and we do some activities out there. There's going to be a lot of proud PGA members at that annual meeting, which is going to be pretty cool to see. So those are probably the two biggest things over the next 6 months. And then there's a lot of, if you can kind of get through all the stuff on the news right now, there's a lot of cool things going on in golf. There's a lot of really cool stories this year, even at our own events. Playoff at the Senior PGA, Michael Block at the PGA. You look at the tour events, the Canadian Open, like some of the finishes, Ricky Fowler. Like, there's some really cool golf stories this year, which is making golf more fun for all levels. And there's a lot of really good things happening with the PGA of America right now. Deferred comp is a game changer. It's going to be retirement money for mostly our younger golf professionals, but it's going to be more impactful for them. Education 3.1 is going very well. More people are going to get through the program. And a lot of people don't realize or don't know, we are at I think an 11 or a 12-year high right now on the number of associates. So recruitment is working. Now we just got to get them through the program and then retain them. So focus on retainment for sure. So there's a lot of really good, exciting things happening in the golf business right now. Wages are up. When you look at the data, we have a hard time getting all the data. When you look at data for a lot of the roles in the golf industry, wages are up across the board compared to they were 2 and 5 years ago. So a lot of good stuff is happening, a lot to be excited for.
Certainly. Well, Nathan, I want to thank you for your time this morning. We don't have any questions on the questions board, and I think we've gotten through most of it. We are very respectful of your time, and thank you very much for being here this morning. For all the PGA members that joined us this morning on the Catalyst, you will receive 1 PDR credit for watching Nathan's interview this morning. And for those of you that want to access this after the fact, it will be on the archive drop down on the education drop down on the SCPGA website. Nathan, thank you very much for being with us this morning. Have a great day, everybody. Take care.
Yeah, thanks, John. Thank you, everybody.